Hi guys, Robbie K coming in with you with another request for an actual movie review via video. So it was a nice surprise to get this request from several people. So tonight we looking get back with a big hit that I guess many people were waiting for. I don't know, given how Disney's kind of done their marketing for their movies. But nevertheless, we are here with yet another Marvel Universe movie. The web slinger himself returns for his second kind of focus movie, and he hopes to bring with it fun, adventure, and a blast. What's in store? Well, that's where I come in to hopefully shed some light as we hit up Robbie's movie reviews video resurgence, I guess is what you'd say. Anyway, tonight again is Spider-Man Far From Home, starring the lovable Tom Holland, Zendaya, and a bunch of other people that you may or may not care about the name. So let's just get on with the review. If you're new to the channel, we kind of give you essentially what was in store based on the trailers, and then we dive into a quick review. Finally, we finish up with a little bit of a more detailed review for those that want a little more bang to their buck, and I'll do my best to be as objective as possible and share when it's my opinion. So let's hit it. Now, in case you haven't seen it, following the events of Endgame, which if you haven't seen by now, I'm going to do my very best not to spoil anything. Spider-Man Far From Home takes place after the big epic event that we were talked about for many months. Essentially, Peter Parker is finding his way in the new world after the events and happens to run into Nick Fury, who has given him another mission to essentially figure out and help a new character known as Mysterio. Well, new at least to the Marvel Universe via movies, not so much in terms of comics. But nevertheless, he is out and about and potentially with some sort of mystery behind it. And all the while, Tom Holland's character, Peter Parker as Spider-Man, is trying to figure out how to balance the new responsibilities and handle a vacation that he's currently on. Will he succeed? Well, it's not for me to tell you. But what it is to tell you is to give you my thoughts on the film itself. So here we go. Overall, in terms of just a quick and dirty summary, it works very well. It's a great follow-up to the epic legacy that many have placed with the Avengers Endgame, especially with all the parts to that movie that were coming in with that epic build-up. To follow such an epic lead and start getting the next chapter going is a tough challenge. And I think Spider-Man Far From Home was a great way to end Wave 3, but at the same time start the next chapter of the saga. Essentially, the thing that was great about it is there wasn't so much pressure. It got to be its own movie, but still managed to find a way to connect stuff from past movies and potentially hint at future ones, which is an excellent source for this kind of material. The acting is fantastic. Tom Holland, once again, just kicks butt with this role. He's designed very well for it. And a number of other people who you've seen in the trailers, with Samuel L. Jackson still reprising Nick Fury, Happy being played by Jon Favreau is great, and Jake Gyllenhaal is the new sort of epic character being entered into the chapter. Did a fantastic job with good chemistry and fun. It's a rather surprisingly balanced movie, making sure to bring the comedy but also the adventure fantasy aspect we love about these movies. And that is what I think is sort of the really good component to the film. It's just that balance that does very well. Now, in regards to it, it's got much better pacing, and it does an epic job of just living up to being a fun Marvel movie that you've been looking for before this whole interconnected web happened. Now, there are some things that I can go into later, but the movie still suffers a little bit from not being that, next epic chapter that I think others are looking for. It may not live up to what we just got with Endgame in those standpoints, and there are times where the comedy aspect may take a little farther over with the suspense and reality, as well as a few entanglements that some may not enjoy. They didn't bother me as much, but they are some things that I can kind of look at as being kind of okay. And of course, being an action junkie, I might have wanted a little more bang for the buck there. But outside of it, though, this movie did a lot better than I was expecting following the big shoes it had to fill. And I was very happy with the production. So is it worth a trip to the theater? Absolutely. This is probably one of the better Marvel movies of the three that have come out, and as several people who either were with me or in the proximity, I think they enjoyed this one of the three that have come out so far the most. And I would say that's a fair estimate and a fair statement. I myself really liked it. I think it fits very well for what comes in next, with, of course, plenty of hints and promises at not only what's next for Spider-Man, but also next in the big global scale. So stay after for both a mid-credit and an end-credit scene. All right, now if this is where if you are leaving the channel, thank you so much for checking in and letting me get back into kind of the video review. I hope you'll like. I hope you'll share. Please, do your best to give me some constructive criticism on how I can help, and I'll do my best. But otherwise, thanks again, and have a good holiday weekend coming up. However, if you want a little more detail into the review, well, here we go. We're going to step into the next film. So, in regards to when it comes to Spider-Man Far From Home, we're going to start with the likes on a positive foot. And that's where we go again with the acting. Tom Holland is a fantastic actor. That boyish charm, that energy, the uncertainty. He plays this role of a kid with more and more unnatural, or I should say, atypical responsibilities thrown at him. It works very well. And he just knows how to deliver it without going too far. He's a natural. And his comedy delivery, meeting with his good persona, just makes for a very fun crafted Peter Parker / Spider-Man that I think fits the bill on both comic book fans and Marvel Cinematic fans. Again, I'm going to go with Jake Gyllenhaal here. The guy is got his very big mixed reviews of roles. Some people love some of them, some people don't. I mean, he's always kind of a wild card for me. So when he came in as Mysterio, it worked. Taking some of the darker moments and managing to lighten them up and blend those moments, he did a fantastic job playing this new kind of addition to the Marvel Universe and the complexity that comes with him. Again, a character that feels very much like a good blend of a comic book, meeting the nicer twist of what they've set up in the cinematic world. So bravo to them on there. I could talk about every actor under the sun. Zendaya did a great job as the new version of MJ, keeping to her roots but pushing the character, and that's of course a combination of writing and I believe her talent. Ned, and I'm sorry I forget the actor's name, but my lord, he knows how to do really good comedic delivery and play that sort of awkward best friend that does great for supporting the role. And of course, legendary Samuel L. Jackson and Colby Smuthers, their involvement in this film along with Jon Favreau, hey, it works given the roles that they did. So bravo to that. I think the thing that I love about this film, though, is the fact of how much it feels like a comic book again brought into the world, and I think it's going to appeal to many fans. If you're a diehard Spider-Man fan like a few of my friends that have gone to see the movies with me are, then you're going to love this because it feels right at home with sort of a Spider-Man tale that we had in the various comics and heck, even the cartoon series. It works so well in terms of that adventure, but still somehow manages to blend that Marvel adult theme into it of being sort of emotionally stimulating, but at the same time still capturing the innocence of Peter Parker. Again, that fine balance and tune just really makes for like reading it. And unlike the DC comics that sometimes try a little too much to literally take the pages of the comic book and do it frame by frame, shot by shot, this one just finds that natural feeling to it for me. Now, if that's not really what you care and you want some of the other flash bang boom, well, we're getting to that. But just give me a few more minutes to ramble on. Spider-Man's Far From Home story does a nice job picking up where Endgame left off. It takes some of the components that we all kind of felt punched in the heart / gut with at the end of Endgame and starts doing the healing process and leading us down, how are we going to take the next fame when we just had that epic conclusion? And I think it worked very well because, again, it's a movie that stands on its own, but somehow manages to still connect to the big picture of the shared universe that I think Kevin Feige and the group were going for. And the nostalgia that comes with it, whether it be the original Sony trilogy that has a couple of nods to it, nods back to some of the most random moments in the original Marvel movies, you're going to be like, wow, did not even piece that together, and still somehow manages to hint towards the future in some form or manner. So bravo to that, because it's pushing character development yet sticking to its roots. Very nicely done in that, in terms of the writing. And the comedy, which a lot of people go to these movies for, is right on par. Unlike some of the other Marvel films that I think try too hard to be funny and don't tell a story, but more so just try to find every sort of laugh. I'm talking about some of the Avengers, Infinity War, even Endgame, where the comedy is utilized semi-well for me, but not the fullest extent. That's not the case here, at least for most of the movie. The comedy works because of, again, what I said. It feels like a Spider-Man comic book. And I think by doing that, writing smartly, you found a way to naturally blend the comedy, put some adult humor in there that's going to be the next meme and repeatable phrase, so watch what you take your kids to see. But, it's got a lot of fun adult comedy into it that works. And if you're a geek like me, you're going to get the other references with the nostalgia. So it's a well-written, balanced version of comedy meeting components. And that brings me to the next part of the pace and the action. Spider-Man Far From Home epically defeats Endgame in terms of pacing. Now, I get it. Endgame had 3 hours. It had a lot of paths to cross. It had so many things that it had to answer with so many actors. I totally get why it didn't necessarily have the best pacing, given the whole component. Spider-Man Far From Home solves that problem easily. The pace is fast and dynamic. Again, enough slowness to build the characters in the tale, but also fast enough to really give you that adventure aspect you're going for these films. And it works very well to get to the point without dawdling, much unlike this review for some of it. The second thing that comes into fact too is, I can honestly say that the action component of this was a little better integrated throughout the movie. Gradual components that built up to a fairly epic climax that may not have the same edge and angle that Endgame did, but has the energy dynamic as well as, again, sticking to the universe that Far From Home creates. So, it's not one of those that's going to be overly dark or violent, but it's still not going to be like some of the fights we've seen in other films that are one-and-done punches and sort of silly fights that offer really more comedy sustenance than thrill-seeking sustenance. But hey, that's just kind of my take on it. And I think it works. Yes, I want more. That's going to be one of my areas of improvement. But it works very well in the mainstay. So kudos to that. In terms of the areas of improvement, this is a little harder for me to come up with how much I enjoyed this movie. But I can say that maybe it would have been nice to start dealing a little more connectivity into the world. Yeah, I totally get that these movies all start about being contained on themselves and starting to drop nods. But as some of the things I loved about Wave 2, you started getting the bigger pieces, and we're this far into it that I kind of think that's the case. Now, again, they do this in the end credit scene, so I give them props there. But I might have wanted a little more nod to potentially a bigger component, much like the first Avengers did, where we started seeing the bigger picture. I think that would have worked a little better for me. As I already said, the action would have been great to have a little more of the epic fist fighting than what they did. While it fits very, well into the movie, I still would have liked a little more of the hard-on edge, because I compare a lot of this to Winter Soldier and Civil War. I love those battles because they contain the excitement and the really big element storytelling component that I think the Marvel Universe is shooting for. So I would have liked that component as well. And I guess the last area of improvement for me is there are times where the humor is a little too forced. As much as I think J.B. Smoove is funny, I think his character and the teacher were a little overdone, and their characters were not quite as balanced as some of the others, which I get was probably the direction. But hey, I look for kind of all the components as much as I can. Now, in regards to anything else that comes with it, again, they're all nitpicky, and even some of the things I've said are nitpicky. But hey, it's not the perfect movie, but it is a pretty darn good close shot at it, especially picking up where Endgame left off. So rambling on and seeing it's nearly 15 minutes, what do I have in store for you? Well, it's simply this. Spider-Man Far From Home has done the job of bridging where the epic finale of the Infinity Saga finished, and instead brings it to where are we going next, in the grand scheme. It picks up some pieces, answers some questions, and then of course offers more for what's coming. And I think it's a great finish to Wave 3, or if you want to go that it's the beginning of Wave 4, go that route. It's got great acting. It's fun. It's a self-contained movie that does a pretty darn good job of getting the storytelling going, being its own movie and starting to connect the pieces. It still has a little bit of work in terms of some balancing issues, maybe a little more storytelling, or tying in with everything, and of course, perhaps a little more action stunts for me. But these are all kind of minor hits. So when I bring this up, again, I hate giving scores because I think sometimes people base the review too much on it instead of the information I'm presented. So take it with a grain of salt because it's hard to gauge it for me. But here we go. To be honest, I think Far From Home is around an 8.5, maybe a 9, just with how much I enjoyed it. And I have to agree with some of my friends. This is probably the best of the three that have come out for yours truly, especially thanks to the pacing and the energy dynamic. I think that in terms of a movie overall, it's probably solid in the 8 at least, if maybe not an 8.5. But again, take the scores for what you're looking for and look at more of what we just talked about. Anyways, guys, thanks so much for looking into it. If you stuck around, again, thank you so much. I'll do my best to make it, but this is a bigger movie, so we'll work on the conciseness. But until then, have a great night. Happy holidays. There will be another review potentially written or this, so check me out at either Robbie's Movie Reviews at WordPress.com if you like writing, or check me out on my Facebook, Robbie K, or Robert Kareem on YouTube, and you'll find me there. Anyways, guys, thanks and have a good night. Bye.